Now, only yesterday, the retail sector launched a campaign to increase awareness of the plight of many businesses around the country as consumers continue to spend warily. But it's a climate where Thorn Group, with its Radio Rentals and Rentlo businesses, continues to thrive. It posted half-year profits today, up 30% to $14.3 million. John Hughes is Managing Director of the Thorn Group, and he joins me now. John, welcome back to the programme.
Right, thank you, Tiki.
Well, shares are up over 4%. 6 months ago, I spoke to you and you had a 28 to 34% full-year profit outlook. I feel it's a bit like Groundhog Day, I presume. Is that still your full-year outlook?
No, we haven't actually issued an outlook, but we are certainly positive with regard to the second half, etc. And the analyst expectations certainly provide, I think, a good indication of where we think we may be for the full year.
4% is also the figure of your customer growth in the Rentlo and Radio Rentals business. With continuing low arrears, you make the point, how much more can you grow in this particular business?
Interesting that the market in itself is growing, which we find certainly very positive, because from our research, the cash and credit constrained market, which is obviously the focus of the Radio Rentals and Rentlo business, is actually growing at a faster rate than total households in Australia. Bit of a sad indictment relative to the total economy, but certainly spelling a good indicator for our own business.
Are these people renting for longer or more people coming into the market?
Both. Certainly our customers over the last 4 years, the average life of a contract has gone from 23 months to 27 months, so that's showing that more of them are renting for longer and certainly taking the opportunity of owning the product at the end of a 36-month period. But we're also noticing a number of new customers coming to us as well.
As you mentioned before, this also reflects a sad state of affairs. Some would say your gain is a measurement of the misery index, really, and indeed your gain is presumably a loss for retailers selling furniture, for example, which is something which you have increased in, haven't you, renting out furniture?
Certainly furniture has been a major growth area, and I think more than anything it's been a latent demand that's been there that people couldn't affordably access good quality furniture, and so we've been able to provide a range that does that, particularly in bedroom and lounge furniture, and it's very, very positive. But I think there's also another thing. In the last 5 years we've really reinvented this organisation, and I think a lot of retailers out there need to really look at their own organisation and say, how can we reinvent it? Because if you don't remain relevant to your customers, they're not going to shop there.
So you don't have any sympathy for Russell Zimmerman from the Australian Retailers Association? He said yesterday, I've been in retail for 30 years and I can't ever remember seeing the number of retailers getting themselves into either financial difficulties or actually having to close businesses down. You don't have any sympathy?
I do. But I think there's also the fact, and I've been in retail since the age of 8, so that's over 50 years, and I think it's a very, very tough environment. One of the toughest things is that out there right now, so many households are hurting because of non-discretionary costs, such as electricity and gas, the staples of life that you can't escape. And that's a really, difficult situation. But at the same time, retailers have really got to have a hard look, because we've got new retailers entering the market and doing very well because they're offering something different.
So when you say reinvent themselves, you mean reinvent themselves on the credit front?
Oh, not just the credit front, on their whole offering that they have for consumers, because you've got to remain relevant to what the market and the market changes, etc. There's a lot of retailers out there right now that have been around for a lot of years, and if you really look at what they're presenting today, it's really not a great deal different from what it was 5 years or 10 years ago.
Finally, your through Cash First, you're offering your unsecured loans. You say they're not payday loans, even though they're sort of around the same 1 to 5,000 range, and that you won't be impacted by the payday loans regulation. But you've also said, I note today, that some changes are needed to keep the payday loan industry viable. Some changes to the regulation. What do you mean by that?
Not changes to the regulation, because there's currently a recommendation or a proposal.
I beg your pardon. Changes to the recommendations.
Is relative to having it still as a viable industry, and we think a 48% rate, or say 4% per month, and taking a leaf out of the Canadian model relative to a set fee for administration of that loan at the start, that can keep a viable industry. Because I do agree that if the payday lending market was certainly wiped out, what would it lead to, some unsavoury practices that have been there in the past. So I think there's got to be a good balance. Our average loan is some $2,500 and in excess of 2 years, so well outside of the less than $1,000 for less than 60 days, etc. But we're very interested in the industry and making sure that it's a good industry for everyone, particularly consumers as well.
And you continue to be very viable. John Hughes, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.